So something I get a lot of questions about, we get emails, DMs all the time, and it's a picture of a plant and it's a question. Is this a plant or is this a weed? So I thought today we would look at some common weeds that we see in the Sarracenia pots. And remember, this is going to be totally variable depending on your area, your weeds, things that are going to be blown in. And we're going to talk a little bit about weeds today. So you might be asking yourself, why are we talking about weeds? That's because a lot of people are curious to know if there's a volunteer in their pot, is it something like this, right? A beautiful Cape Sundew, which you do want in your pot. That's really fun. Or over here, look, this little flower is Utricularia bisquamata. That's a fun plant to have pop up in your pot. Another question I get asked all the time is about these. These right here, these are actually just the moss spores. So that moss that grows in our pots, these are the spores that it uses to make more moss. You can gently pluck them out. They come out really easily if you only grab a few at a time, or you can nip them back with scissors. But a lot of people want to know what's growing in their pots for lots of reasons. They want to know if they need to keep it or get rid of it. And because these plants grow, a lot of them grow in peat moss. Peat moss is a very effective seed germinating medium. You will find weeds, especially if you grow your plants outside where wind, birds, all sorts of things are going to blow those weeds in. So let's take a look at some of my Sarracenia that I noticed happen to be weedy. We'll just go and see how easy it is to weed and what you can pull out. So these little guys are exposed to wind, a lot of wind, see? And because of that, there's going to be seeds sometimes that blow in and they germinate on this peat moss soil, and then you get weeds. So I routinely go through and weed plants all the time. That's just part of nursery life, is constant weeding. And you should too. But what's hard to tell for some people is whether or not it's a plant that they want to keep or a weed. So we're just going to look at a few common ones. Grasses are very common, and you can just pull them out, things like this. There's all sorts of little funky weeds. These are my specific weeds. Just remember, yours are going to be a little bit different. Some are going to have crazy thick roots. Some are going to be really hard to pull out. And that's the real joy of weeds. Like this guy over here is really annoying because if it's going to want to break off when I try to pull it out. See that? And I'm left with that. So I often use tweezers, the tweezers we use in our videos all the time, to really get deep in here. And then you can really pull it out as you want those roots. There are all sorts of weird little weeds. You can see everything pretty much that isn't this pitcher plant is a weed in here. One I get asked about a lot is something like this. This is a weed. There aren't carnivorous plants that look like that, so you can pull that right out. There are a lot of questions around this because people worry that carnivorous plants might look like that when they first grow, because so many plants, when they first germinate, don't look like what they're going to look like when they're mature. But remember that most carnivorous plants look just like themselves pretty quickly when they grow. The whole other world of weeds are the ones that are inside. The inside ones are much more to a dull roar because they aren't going to be spread by wind or birds or any other little critters other than maybe us. Or sometimes there's a fun thing, which is that we find that the New Zealand sphagnum moss germinates. Some things must be already harbored inside the sphagnum moss, but not a big deal, little grasses and things. However, by careful and aggressive removal of weeds from all of our collection plants over the years, we've really reduced that weed load. But we're going to take a look at some of the ones that we find here so you can kind of see what they look like and get a feel for what everything looks like normally. This is it. This is the most common one I see inside here at this stage. It's this grass right here. This size, it's going to be very hard for me to actually get this out because it's going to have a root system that's already grown. But this is one of those ones you're going to want to pull early when it is young. It will make your life really, really easy if you get that out. Nothing that we grow is going to come out looking like this when it's first grown. So don't worry. You can see all those sundews in there. Those volunteers, they look very different. This is like a grass situation, very, very different than a carnivorous plant. This is another very, very common weed you're going to find on your indoor plants, and that is oxalis. Oxalis is very frustrating. You're going to want to pull it out very carefully to try to get, there's like a carrot in here. But what I want to warn you about with oxalis are these. These little seed heads are designed that when they're mature, if you touch them, they open and spray seeds everywhere, which is very fun. So before I weed, I always grab them firmly and hold them and pull them off so that I don't ever have to worry about this horrible little catapult opening up and spreading seeds everywhere. So before you weed anything like oxalis, look for those. I thought it might be helpful if we also took a look at what baby plants look like that are carnivorous so that you can compare them to weeds and not worry so much about pulling those weeds. Look at these little baby Sarracenia. So let's see if we can get in here. Look at that. Look at these little tiny babies right in here. Little tiny Sarracenia that look like Sarracenia. Fly traps too. Look at those fly traps. But more impressively, look at that tiny little flytrap trap. So you don't have to worry. Carnivorous plants really look like carnivorous plants when they're germinating. And here are little baby Nepenthes. Look how cute these are. Look how itty bitty these little Nepenthes are. And they look just like little Nepenthes with itty bitty little pictures on them. Here are little baby Cephalotus, also super tiny. And sundews always look like sundews. So don't fear and fret. One other common thing I see in Nepenthes pots in many collections, and we still have a few in ours even though we're trying to remove them, are ferns. So ferns are quite lovely, of course. The problem is ferns, like with these beautiful leaves, go down in here and they have black roots that get tangled up with the Nepenthes black roots, and you could almost never separate them without breaking a ton of the roots. I would advise removing all ferns from your pots because they really, really get tangled up with your Nepenthes. So we're more than happy to answer your questions, right? If you want to email us and say, oh my God, I'm so concerned, is this a weed? We'll do that for you. We don't mind at all. But be brave and remember, baby flytraps look like flytraps. Baby Sarracenia look like Sarracenia. Baby sundews look like sundews. Also, side note, one thing people get confused about is they think a lot of weeds might be pinguicula because they share a similar leaf shape. That is so rare. We don't really see a lot of pinguicula volunteers and things. So it's very unlikely, especially if it's in an outdoor plant, that it is a ping volunteer or ping seedling. Remember to keep those weeds at bay. You really need to pull them all the time. You really need to keep on that. So every time I'm out here doing inventory work, I pull weeds as I go. It makes my life a lot easier if I get them when they're small like that than when they're really big and they have a giant taproot. Also, don't beat yourself up if you have weeds. Like you just saw, I just showed you the embarrassing weedy tray I have. That's okay. That's part of gardening. That's part of life. Weeds happen. Weeds are just nuisance plants because they're opportunistic and it is nature. So don't beat yourself up if you have weedy plants. We all have a couple weedy plants at home in our collection. I know I have some in my own backyard that I have to weed. But again, get in there early, pull them out when they're small because you'll save yourself a lot of trouble. There's one we have here that Damon and I have always called sausage grass because it has these horrible little tubers that stick in the soil. And so you really want to dig that out. But it's actually really satisfying when you dig it out and there's like a million little sausages and you're like, haha, I got this. Or in our Nepenthes, if we get out the oxalis and there's a big old carrot, we're so thrilled. But through this aggressive weeding process that we have been doing for years and years and years, we really went hard at it for the last 2 years. We have really reduced the amount of weeds in our collection plants. And that makes us so happy. So it does work over time, especially indoors. If you really aggressively weed your plants, you are going to reduce the overall load. They won't have seeds that can spread. They won't have rhizomes or anything else. So keep weeding. So don't give up hope. Keep at it. Remember, it's part of the Zen and meditation of gardening, of keeping plants, of caring for them. It's part of all of it. Don't beat yourself up. Don't freak out. Just keep going and try to find some joy in it because when you're done weeding, it looks so clean and beautiful and it's very satisfying. It's part of that whole you take care of the plants will take care of you thing that we do here. All right. Happy growing.